Greetings everyone, my name is Resh Ramasamy. I am a university lecturer, a PhD student, a published author and a developmental educator. Vlog 6 is devoted to unpacking the narratives surrounding problematic professionals, that's correct, problematic professionals that are situated within the healthcare and education profession. Vlog 6 is an extension to Vlog 4. In Vlog 4, I provided you with some insights into the issues and concerns surrounding service users. In Vlog 6, the tables have been turned to capture and canvas the issues and concerns surrounding professionals, permeating across the healthcare and education care sector. Before I get into the juicy content, I would like to state the following. Given the current climate pertaining to the COVID-19 crisis, I am thankful and grateful to be given the opportunity to be made aware of the issues on how to cope, manage, combat, address this pandemic and deadly virus. However, I remain frightened, disturbed, and petrified of the viruses that take shape of human form within this helping and caring profession. I will provide you with some snippets or some of my experiences that I've encountered and continue to encounter within this helping and caring profession. I suppose most of my issues are surrounding horizontal bullying, where people in management or senior colleagues demean, degrade, dehumanize me. I've typically had my bosses that I report to, my supervisors, managers, just don't know how to behave and how to treat their staff with respect, with integrity, with kindness. And as a result of that, I've suffered quite a lot. It has taken a huge toll on my mental health, and there were times when I completely lost my sense of self, my sense of identity, because of the monumental bullying and harassment that seemed to almost infiltrate my personal and professional life. There were days when I would just go home in tears, and I would go home and just start to wonder what's going on, because some of those bullying and harassment were quite implicit and others were explicit, and therefore I just did not know how to define those implicit bullying and harassment, because it was very unclear and very ambiguous to me. And despite asking a series of questions and talking about those issues to professionals and colleagues and friends, it was really hard to establish the motivation and intention of those bullying and harassment episodes. And also, when it's coming from your boss, people you report to, people you respect and expect respect back in return, but what I was receiving is just stones thrown at me constantly. At the beginning of the vlog, I mentioned to you all how the bullying and harassment within the helping and caring profession is far more profound, far more severe than the COVID-19 crisis. This bullying and harassment remains alive, and it's ongoing, and it's growing, and it's constant. And lots of employees are afraid to speak up, are afraid to expose those managers and supervisors who behave barbarically, because people are afraid to lose their jobs. The word justice and equality are routinely talked about within this helping and caring profession. Funnily enough, those two words are not practiced and exercised in its purest form. That's right. I've seen people exercising equality in a very selective fashion, and I've seen justice being exercised in a very selective fashion as well. Lots of people in this helping and caring profession do not know the concept of equality or justice. I sometimes wonder, how did these people even get there? I mean, you find these sorts of people within management, leadership, in senior roles, and you start to wonder, how did they even get there? What sorts of qualifications did they have? And how did they even attain those qualifications? Did they purchase them from a bookstore? I must say, I'm rather amused and bemused with the whole situation, because I've worked with different professionals and some of them don't have the appropriate qualifications to be giving advice, but they still do. And some of them don't have the right skill sets, but they pretend, put on a front, a facade, that they know everything and anything. And therefore, when you provide a recommendation or advice, it gets dismissed and not taken seriously. And I could go on and on and on. As I've mentioned to you all in my earlier vlogs, my purpose and commitment to humanity is large. It's wide-ranging. It's to bring those voices, those oppressed, suppressed, marginalized voices to the shore. And it's to seek for justice, because we want platforms that listen, action, appraise, review, not platforms that listen and push aside, listen and silence, listen and suppress. And lots of these issues remain alive today because of platforms, whether it being HR, your manager, or organization policies that do not protect the rights of professionals and staff. So we have to do things differently. If you can't find a solution within the organization, go external, because it's really important that justice is obtained. But more importantly, those people doing bad things, those people who are continuing to do bad things, are reprimanded and are given disciplinary action for their behaviors. It needs to stop. For this vlog, I thought I would do things a bit differently. I will do less talking and provide you with rich data, rich subjective data from 4 amazing human beings. And these 4 amazing human beings are people that I respect and people that are providing with honest feedback, opinions, and their experiences of how they've had to negotiate and navigate toxic workplaces, toxic bosses, toxic professionals within the helping and caring profession.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Michael and I'm in my early 30s. For the last 10 years, I've been working professionally in healthcare and mental health as a security officer. Also, I'm a mobile personal trainer, have my own business, and for the last 10 years, I'm also an entertainer, performer. The 3 key elements to actually build a good relationship with someone professionally is trust, rapport, and empathy. I see some of that with our clients, patients, but directly with other colleagues, there is a lack of those 3, and also lack of communication. People just assume that you know what you're doing. People are not handing down instruction accordingly, and then there's a lot of conflict and misunderstanding, and that's where there's a big gap. So the person wasn't my direct supervisor or manager. They worked in a different team and they did a different scope of duties, but they were trying to condescend towards myself and bully and harass my colleagues. For example, I heard certain colleagues of mine weren't able to stand 12 hours of duration of their shift, and the chairs were taken from their feet. So they had to mind a patient, do a mentally and stressful job and potentially dangerous physically to the health and safety and of the others, but not to be seated down. I brought that up to my general practitioner, my doctor. My doctor said that's actually borderline illegal. We're doing a hard job mentally and we need to maintain a high level of concentration for the duty of care of the client, the patient, and for ourselves as doctors and nurses. I'd love to see more, and I think this is not just in work, but also life is more. It's actually more kindness and more mindfulness. People are not mentally present, and we're just becoming slaves and robots. We need to be more in touch with ourselves and treat people the way we want to be treated. Because at the end of the day, we're there to do a duty and a job, and if it becomes like border like slavery, people are not going to do it with passion and attention, and then things are going to be missed, and that's potential disaster to the client, the patient.
Originally started in early child development in the UK under the Professor Frida Briggs, and moved to Australia, where I commenced taking charge of childcare centres, started the very first play group in South Australia, and auditioned for a role in play school when it was first coming out, and I declined. Didn't take the role on, but then I moved into other areas of work in mental health, Glenside Hospital back in the late 70s. Then I became self-employed, and I basically created a workshop for children with behaviour issues, called that Star Kids, and used colour therapy, which I'm a colour therapist. Then with an economic decline, I closed my business and went to work for a company for almost 7 years. But I was actually made redundant just a few months before my 7 years with them. The place I mentioned earlier was perhaps one of the most toxic environments I've ever endured, to the point of almost having a breakdown myself. Before that though, it was almost like queuing up, next. One person particularly comes to mind that was very unwell as a result of immense bullying and harassment by management, to the point that they did leave the company. Then another person I'm looking at right now enjoyed a similar occurrence and left, and then it was my turn. And that's exactly how it felt. And there were, even though the company had policies in place for bullying and harassment, victimisation, I don't quite know what they did about it. But with the position I held at this toxic place of employment, as it got closer to me leaving the company, each day I would just drag my feet slowly and slower to the door. After I parked my car, it was just so hard to get ready in the morning to leave home and to go to that place. It was just insane. The feelings, it affected my home life with my husband. We have no children living with us, so thankfully it didn't affect them, but it was quite a horrible time. It's very hard to put it into words how one is feeling, because in a professional capacity, trying to maintain that professional outlook and position is not an easy thing in an environment that's so toxic. And when I felt unsupported, totally unsupported, no one wanted to listen or hear what I had to say, and I went to numerous people about it, and it was just swept under the carpet. And I found that very difficult, because I'm a very honest and straightforward, direct person, and my philosophy is, if something is not right, fix it. You don't fix it by ignoring it. So I felt totally ignored. I didn't feel valued at all. My self-esteem went from a happy person to withdrawing. I started to withdraw within the office environment. I wanted to be in my own office alone, because I functioned a lot better with my workload. lots of things were happening in the place that I was unaware of for my own position, until I started to ask questions. And I found out a year after my position had been made redundant, and I found out by chance a year later. That to me was very, very unprofessional. I think organisations, years ago, my husband and I did a 2-day retreat for executives. We were a little bit before our time in the 90s, and we used on our brochure at the time something from an article that had been put in the Australian. We got the permission to use that particular, and it was called the Two-Faced Boss. And that rings so true with what we're talking about right now, with my own private experience with this company. And I think that article should be perhaps republished to have a look at for people who do the policies and procedures. And if you're going to put policies and procedures into place for your organisation, it's not because legislation says that you have to or we have to, because that is part of legislation today with running a business, especially a national business like this business was. You need to listen to what your staff want. You need to listen to your workers. What do they want? Because the role that I played, it was very hard for me for the first couple of years, because the workers didn't trust me, because I came out of the office and they wouldn't put in notify. They didn't comply with policy and procedure because they knew it wouldn't work. They wouldn't be heard and listened to. And this is what organisations need to do. They might think they're doing it, but they're not. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this ongoing bullying and harassment. I hear it on the radio a lot of different organisations. So something is really not right and not working. Unfortunately, a lot of organisations don't do that. They say, well, we have our meetings, but they don't really listen. They don't really want to know about what we have to say, whether it's relevant or not, whether it's right or wrong, good or bad. We still are entitled to have our say and throw it on the table and then discuss it or take further action or don't take action.
I've had some psychiatric support, and during that psychiatric session, an unfortunate thing happened where one of the psychiatrists went ahead and just decided to start yelling at me out of the blue for absolutely no reason whatsoever. I found this very upsetting, very mentally scarring, and I just found it to be out of practice for what I thought was somebody who was trying to help, when in fact they're just trying to, I feel they're trying to inflict more pain onto me. I have seen some disgraceful things before. There's been a ABC 730 report where an NDIS client who was very highly autistic, unfortunately one of the carers, one of the NDIS support carers went ahead and smacked the child and did not report it to the client's parents. There was an inquest put in by the child's parents because they saw the slap mark across the child's face, and therefore, from what I have heard from that same 730 story where they did an update on the story, the NDIS provider has been terminated. The NDIS needs to do more screening just to make sure that there's that safety and peace of mind there before people sign up to the NDIS to get an NDIS plan.
I worked as a carer and support worker for 26 years, and then after I retired I started writing books about disability and about bullying. And so these are the 2 books that I've written so far, and I'm working on some more. I'm online, and you can buy them in some of the bookshops, and there's a cafe on Marion Road, South Australia, are called Once in a Game, and you can buy them there. This is a lot of support workers are booking in more hours because they want more money, and they just sit around and do nothing with a client, and they claim the hour because they were with the client, not because they were helping the client. They were just there. And the company needs to know what the client needs and that it's being done.
It's like babysitting, isn't it?
Yes, it's babysitting, and it's sad because some of the clients that I've worked with can do some fantastic things. Like one of my clients, he produced TV shows, and then he had his own radio show, and if he didn't have the right support workers, he couldn't do any of that. But by having the right support workers, he was able to do some things that everyone would love to be able to do. Get out and work. You need to have people who have got a burden and a desire to work with these people, and you don't find that in the Cert 3 and Cert 4. Because that's the training of it, and you've got to have experience, and it's no good. I had a young lad come work with me. He just finished his Cert 3, lovely young guy, but he knew nothing. He'd just done his Cert 3, and fortunately he came and worked with me, and he was willing to learn. But they wanted him to go out by himself, and he would have failed. Fortunately, he decided that this job wasn't for him, and so he moved on. But there are others that do the course, come out into the job, and because they've got a job and it's bringing in money, they're happy. They're not interested in the client, they're just wanting the money. And so it's just a job to them. It's not a situation where you can help someone to live a better life. And that's what we're supposed to be there. We're there to help people, not to just earn money. It's not a job, it's more than just a job. And so they sent in 11 people. And unfortunately, 10 shouldn't have been sent in. And then my client wasn't happy with any of them. And so he went out and got his own support worker, and the company took credit for it.
So those support workers who were sent from the company, what was lacking in them?
Well, one support worker came in and she told my client what she would do and what she wouldn't do. And he said to her, no, this is what I need you to do, not what you want to do, it's what I need. And when I started with this client, I was supposed to do a shadow shift. And I got there, and the support worker, who was his last night with this client, he introduced me to the new client, and then he said goodbye to the client and left. And here I was, having met this client for the first time, and no one to show me what to do. Now the client couldn't show me what to do. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't show me how I was to take him from the wheelchair onto his bed, or from his bed onto the wheelchair. So he had to tell me, explain it to me. Fortunately, he had a brilliant mind, and he was able to tell me exactly what to do and how to do it. And so I had 9 wonderful years working with him. But it could have been disastrous if he hadn't been able to tell me what to do.
So where to from here? In keeping with the best interest of good employees, good professionals within the caring and helping profession, I think HR needs to step up their game. We need qualified people, unbiased people with good values, integrity to be working in HR, people and culture departments. We need to have more audits. External audits where external people come in to an organization and interview staff randomly. We need more of these voices, more of these stories that feature bullying, harassment to come out. We need the stories to come out. We need people to share their stories. We need people to talk about their problems openly, because if these problems are not dealt with in a sensitive and appropriate fashion, these stories need to go further. It can't just stop within the organization. Go outside, go external to the organization and get some help, get some justice for yourself, but also for people who are suffering in the organization, for prospective employees who join the organization. I understand for some of you this vlog is controversial, but equally it is justice driven, and it's time to speak up, and it's time to bring these voices to the shore and to the forefront of policy and practice. And to conclude, I urge those professionals out there, yes, I'm talking to you. If you're watching this vlog, I do know that there are plenty of priors who pry on my vlog, and that's brilliant as well. Keep prying. If you are one of those professionals who are causing chaos, disruption, and turbulence in the workplace within this sensitive industry, I urge you to stop right now, and I urge you to watch the space, because your time will come. There will be consequences for those behaviors. This industry is too precious to have those parasites, those bad people. We want beautiful people with a good heart. We want people that have respect for other people. We want people that have good morals and values. Onwards and upwards. I love you all, Rish.